This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you late Tuesday night. It's May 14th after Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic for 48 minutes after receiving the MVP trophy in front of the home crowd before Game 5. Nuggets win by 15. They're up 3-2. They got there on his back. They got there on the back of one of the most dominant big man performances I've ever seen against the best defense in the NBA. I'm joined here by Kyle Theige. Let's rip through a bunch of things like we have been for these post-game podcasts, but let's start with Jokic. How would you describe what he was able to do in this one, or what popped first? What was the first thing you're like, okay, this is trouble?
I mean, it's funny because it kind of all encapsulated with at the end when he late in the game, fourth quarter, game's at an arm's length, like the Nuggets aren't going to lose. But he's just kind of toying with Rudy at the top of the key, looks around, shot clock winding down, just kind of takes this heaven-touching three-pointer and just goes in. Like everything he did tonight, it was, like you said, one of the best big man performances. I was trying to, in the hour since you got home or whatever, I was trying to like look up other playoff performances. I mean, he had 40 points on 15 of 22 shooting, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, and 0 turnovers. That's crazy. 8 for 9 from the free throw line. I mean, he just everything he did was impeccable. His teammates also kind of like fed off him in a way that just they didn't take any bad shots. Like, nope. Like, even if I have a glimmer, like, let me just get it back to Jokic and he'll find me an even easier shot. They had no answers for him. I mean, Rudy Gobert was like good tonight offensively in a way, and it didn't matter. It was probably demoralizing, and you kind of saw like every big that they threw at him had a moment like Nas had in Game 4, where remember Nas at the halftime kind of like got bit on that pump fake. Jokic hit a bucket, and then Nas was just kind of like, what the hell? Every one of those guys had one tonight. Carl had one. Rudy had a bunch. There's really nothing else they can do to stop him one-on-one and move into Game 6. I mean, maybe you just say we're going to double him and make him set the record for assists in a game, but they have no answer for him, including the Defensive Player of the Year, who, again, I thought Rudy was getting cooked like online and on TV while you were working, but I thought Rudy played good defense in a lot of spots, and it doesn't matter because Jokic is just that good. He's the best player in the league.
Yeah, I want to get to that. I play this Ant clip here. First reminder, we are brought to you by Prize Picks. You can take a look at the Prize Picks slate for Game 6. Finally, my Gobert more than 12.5 points hit in this one. I've been calling for it every one. Again, prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app, promo code Dane. Here's Anthony Edwards on Nikola Jokic, and then also a little bit of Ant on himself.
I just laugh. That's all I can do. I mean, I can't be mad because he good, man. I think I said that after Game 1 when we won, and Game 2. Like, he the MVP, he's the best player in the NBA. And he showed it the last 3 games in a row. And tonight, he was special tonight. I got to give him his flowers. It was, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we were supposed to. Yeah, he was that guy tonight.
Yeah, you've seen the majority of the defensive attention all season, but is this the most like consistent doubles that you've seen in your career?
Yeah, this was crazy. Today was crazy for sure. Yeah, today was wild. Yeah.
Kyle, I wanted to leave that last part in there because that's another part of the story of this game, and maybe the story of looking ahead to Game 6 is it was Phoenix all over again. Game 82 Phoenix with the way they were loading up on Ant. Okay, objective number 1 is taking him away, and kind of the way that Denver can guard and load up on him. You kind of can take Ant away, or they show that you can do that by putting 2 on the ball, loading up the paint, and that's what's standing out to me about Jokic is you can't do that. Like there isn't a put 2 on the ball, there isn't a boxes and elbows look you can do. There isn't really a make somebody else beat you thing. I mean, maybe we can talk about going ahead, in Game 6 of doing something a little more like Game 2, where when you didn't have Gobert, they were doubling from the top, right? And you're just kind of forcing to make him a passer, which he's going to, he's going to make those passes and he's going to find open looks. Then, I mean, if they do that look, then it becomes, are Michael Porter Jr. and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope going to be able to make open threes or not. Maybe that's a pivot for game 6. But, I mean, right away, man, right in the first quarter, the Wolves threw everything at him, all their different options. Cat on Jokic with Gobert spying. Gordon gets in foul trouble early, right? So then they go, all right, now, Rudy, you're on Jokic one-on-one. That was a signal because Jokic went right at that right away, crushed Gobert one-on-one. They put Reed on him with Gobert spying. They put Kyle Anderson on him with Gobert spying. There was absolutely nothing that slowed that down. I think what remains the best look is Towns on him with Gobert spying. But, Denver's kind of worked the entire series to find ways to, I was talking about that being the look that has the teeth for the Wolves. Like they're plucking those teeth. They did that with, in games 3 and 4 with having Gordon bring the ball up the floor and kind of inverting where Gordon is positioned on the floor. So Rudy can't really be there. Then I don't even really think it was the Wolves did something to make Gordon not be the one to bring the ball up. They were just like, we're going to have Jokic do it this time, which has the same impact of, okay, you're not going to probably full court pressure that, right? Unless maybe Nas is out there or something. They've just kind of, Denver and Jokic came into this series knowing the way that the Wolves were going to guard them. And the question was in 7 games, before the Wolves got to 4 wins, were they going to be able to find really strong answers for that? And absolutely in this one, they did. Jokic was making some tough shots, but I don't know. I mean, those tough shots are just kind of to be somewhat expected with him because, as Ant said, he's that guy, and he's the person that you don't have answers for, and that even the best defense in the league with the defensive player of the year, Rudy's not like that one-on-one defensive player of the year, right? We saw throughout the season when he guarded big, powerful guys like Sabonis one-on-one, that was problematic. They're showing that they have answers for this element of like the first question on the test really is like, what can you present to Jokic? They don't have answers for that.
He's like a dementor. Like he kind of just really sucked the soul of anyone that guarded him. And that's, I mean, if you're trying to spin it at somehow like it's 3-2, you go back to Minnesota.
I got a whole segment queued up of things that worked. There were things that worked better in this. Nothing related to Jokic, but
right. I just the most impressive part was obviously his whole game from start to finish. He played 41 minutes tonight, was great. But the really impressive thing, if you're a Nuggets fan, was that third quarter. I thought the Wolves, and this is a Jokic thing, but that third quarter the Wolves actually came out and were pretty impressive to like regain the lead. I think they were down 6 at half. They come out. Carl looked really good. They're up 55-53. And then it was, I think, Jokic either scored or assisted on like the next 28 points. Like the third quarter was a masterpiece on the night that he gets his 3rd MVP trophy in front of his home fans. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of how do you stop him, it's funny because one of the ways, and talking to Denver people too, he still would rather just facilitate. I mean, he's just so well-rounded that I think going into this series, my idea was like, okay, make him be a scorer. I think he's taken 22 or more shots. Right, yeah. I think he's taken 22 or more shots 3 times in these first 5 games. He only took 122 shots like once in those 5 games against the Lakers. So he is taking more field goal attempts. He is becoming a scorer more. The problem is that he's the most efficient scorer on the planet. So you're just kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I don't know how to stop that. I mean, I guess if you're trying to nitpick one thing for game 6, like, okay, well, maybe we can turn that water off. It's the 13 assists and just be like, I guess we're going to make him drop 50 on us, which he could. But yeah, he just, another thing too, in terms of like his game tonight that was just unstoppable. When he gets like into transition, it's Ricky Rubio and like Lendale White from the Titans had a kid. It's this mass of body weight coming down the floor, but with this court vision. I mean, he had just some insane. He loves to push the ball off misses, which is crazy because he's 320 pounds.
That was an intention too, right? So
yeah,
defense couldn't set up, couldn't get the pressure. Yeah.
And also too, I don't know if you noticed this, but I was like watching it back after. I don't know if this happened in 3 and 4, but it seems like they ran a lot of like 4 or 5 pick and rolls with Aaron Gordon setting the screen. So then it just kind of like caused chaos in the switch because now it's like Carl and Rudy trying to defend that, and it just led to whatever matchup Jokic wanted he got. So yeah, plus 21, best player on the court tonight. Overall, probably best player in the series. And they're awake, right? Like the Denver Nuggets have clearly sleptwalked through the Lakers. They didn't really need to try that hard. Maybe sleptwalked through those first 2 home games, but Mike Malone said it after the game. We played like a championship team these last 3 games, and they are still, we said to be the best, you got to beat the best. They are still the best, and he is still the best player on planet Earth.
The other contender for best player in the series is, of course, Anthony Edwards, but that's why I kind of left that in that clip there. They just, again, do not have as many ways to get him going. It is not as much of a known commodity of what Ant is going to give you game to game as it is Jokic, which is not that's really not that much against Ant, right? Like that's very, very rare that anybody can be as bankable as Jokic is. But you come into this game and we can talk about some stuff with Conley out too, but you kind of knew what you needed from Ant if Conley wasn't going to play. And Denver knew that too, right? And they're like, okay, well, we're going to not let that happen. We're going to sell out to not let that happen. What did you feel from Ant, from an energy standpoint, from a frustration standpoint, from a way they were guarding him standpoint of that not really being able to match? I mean, at halftime, it was rough. He was 1 for 8 from the field, 5 points, 2 assists, 3 turnovers. I think he was 0 for 5. Yeah, he was 0 for 5 from 2-point range. Just really, they were taking away that downhill element of his game. What stood out to you about Ant?
I mean, it looked like they kind of just defended him like we thought, or like Phoenix was going to and did defend him, but he just either didn't have the stamina because, again, he played another 44 minutes tonight. That was my big thing, right? Like, you just got to play him as much as possible. I knew the downsides of that, but again, what other options did you have when you look at that bench again tonight? Also, too, worth mentioning, no Mike Conley in this game. It's a pretty big deal to not have not only your floor general out there, but just another guy who can create his own offense from time to time and also space the floor. Yep. But yeah, he finished with 18 points. He had a playoff career high 9 assists. That stood out to me simply because he could have had 18, but his teammates just didn't make shots. Yep. So, I mean, Jaden was really bad tonight in terms of like just spacing the floor, 1 for 4. Nikhil, I think, was 4 for 8. I mean, he did hit some shots, but there was still, Finch said this post game, those guys still missed shots in big spots that would have gotten us a little more momentum, but they just sold out. They just said, even if Carl goes off, which, Carl had a fair offensive night, we're just going to make you get off the ball. And there's a lot of times, too, if you go back and watch this, which I know you will, but, like, I don't know if Rudy can set as many ball screens for Ant. It just doesn't work because Jokic blitzes them, and it puts Ant in a weird spot, and they don't. The first play of the game,
it's not really the same thing as a normal pick and roll, right? Where you're like, okay, it gets down the floor. It doesn't create that normal advantage. What the advantage it creates is Rudy. Yeah, Rudy on the roll, baby.
Yeah, but I don't even think they care about that. Like, they're just like, whatever, if he gets the ball. They just want Ant to get the ball out of his hands. And if they find Rudy on a roll and it's a 4-on-3, they don't care because then they're like, okay, now the next domino is we're going to make Jaden hit threes. We're going to make Nas hit threes. We're going to make, Carl hit a ton of threes. And it's kind of the perfect formula, but also, too, you just can't watch this and be like, he just doesn't have his same burst. And you're not making, like, excuses because everyone's down this to the final 8, the conference semifinals, but he just didn't have it. Like, there was a shot he had, I think, in the first half where he got a guy off him and he had that mid-range bank shot. And he just missed it really bad. And you just could tell, like, with his form and his legs that he just didn't have it. So they're asking a lot of him. They're putting 2-3 guys on him in spots. It's the same Phoenix thing. But unlike in that Phoenix series, he didn't have all the legs. And he also just, his teammates around him, doesn't have Mike, doesn't have a fully healthy Carl. I mean, you were on the scene tonight. I don't know what you saw post-game, but Carl clearly banged his knee. So all of his soldiers around him are banged up or not playing well. And then it's just him. And it's that formula isn't going to work. Like, tonight was not a night that Anthony Edwards could have had 40 points. It was just kind of impossible.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the Phoenix thing of loading up, right? We talked about the gap help triangle all the time. And sometimes what Phoenix would do is they bring Nurkic up there too, because they're like, okay, don't just let Ant pull right from the top, like the big, but like Phoenix doesn't do that all the time. And so Ant was finding those little like cut, like being able to split the coverage right there if Nurkic would come up. This is how Denver always plays defense. That's probably worth noting. Like they play Jokic up in coverage like almost all the time. They're good at that. Like for what they lack in terms of rim protection. And we've seen Ant when Ant's got to the rim, right? Like and finished easily in this series. But when you have Jokic and if it's Gordon on Ant, right, that's a wall right there. And then it kind of like lurks back into there's still help behind them. So when Ant says that was crazy, I've never seen anything like that. I think that's what it is. It's the little bit extra of Jokic up there and being a big who's actually good at pressing up in coverage. And I don't know. I mean, you need, again, and it happened in Phoenix, you need to do something. You need to unlock something else that makes them go, okay, we can't guard Ant with our whole team, like it needs to be, it needed to be maybe Carl earlier in the game, and Carl played well in the third quarter. It needs to be Jaden hitting those shots, or Nas when he's coming in, not getting in foul trouble, getting to the basket. Something else. I mean, I would assume Denver runs this back, right, in terms of how they're guarding Ant. Something else needs to be pulled so things can open up for Ant. It's what happened in the Phoenix series. It's what didn't happen. It's what didn't happen tonight.
Yeah, there was it was basically, if you go back and watch some of like these clips, Matt Moore tweeted out some really good clips, but it's what Phoenix did, but instead of Nurkic and Bradley Beal and Royce O'Neal, it's Jokic and Aaron Gordon and KCP, right? Like at least two of the best defenders in the league, and then Jokic, who is just massive, who, as Ant even said when they were back in Minnesota, like it just, or Rudy said this, like all the arms and stuff, it just makes it a little more complicated to try to find threading it to Rudy on the roll or finding any of his teammates. But again, right. I look at some of these clips, and when he's getting blitzed or he's getting doubled, he's got Monty Morris to the left, and he's got Kyle Anderson to the right, or he's got Jaden in the corner, who again was 1 for 4. So again, kind of like with Jokic,
I had the thought come into my mind of shooter this summer, like shooting. They're short on
in terms
it.
of welcome to the January pod that I had. Yeah, when I was like, what they need is they need another shooter at the deadline or something. And now in hindsight, you don't have Mike, and that sucks. And Carl, if you didn't watch the game, obviously Carl gets like kind of rolled up or teed up in a, not technical, but like in the knee, where you kind of get that right to the left knee, and he kind of rolls around, and he was never the same after that, but he did tough it out and give him some points. 23 points, led the team. But tonight was a good night if you're trying to think of long term, what does this team still need? And it was playmaking. Again, no Mike Conley, but also just shooters. Just they don't have enough shooters. And when you move into game 6, and we can talk about it later, but I think you got to go down swinging. You just got to go down swinging with guys that can put the ball in the basket or at least shoot the ball. And that would, to me, mean no more Kyle Anderson. Because even tonight, again, man, there was nothing tonight. He only played 16 minutes, had a couple assists and rebounds. It's just good player, solid season. But in this series, he is truly the definition of playoff unplayable.
Let's grab our first break. Today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet English Muffins. Yes, we do have an English muffin sponsor on the pod, and that's because we love these. We love them. Kyle, you love them. This is go-to breakfast material here. There's a substance to them, 6 grams of protein in these English muffins, handmade in Boston. Cool story of a company that's kind of come to rise up on the East Coast and has spread to the Midwest. We've been telling you about them all year. They are available at Whole Foods for purchase. I think we have sold out their online stock, or played a part of it. Sold out part of it. Yeah, let's go. Kyle, quickly, your Stone and Skillet thoughts.
I talked to Cam Meekins when we were back, and he said send them to Whole Foods, send them to grocery stores because we sold them out online. They're delicious. As we've joked about earlier, I don't know if you can go to your local checkout and say promo code Dane to get a discount, but I highly recommend just trying them. They're delicious. I had one while I was waiting for you tonight on this pod because it's 1 a.m, but they're delicious, and it's another cool story. It's another cool company that supports us, and that's the best way to support the show is to support the people that support us. So shout out to Stone and Skillet.
Absolutely. Today's show is also brought to you by Autograph and the Autograph app. The Autograph app is a place where you can it's free to download. You can do so using the QR code on the screen, or just go to the Autograph, go to Autograph on the App Store or Google Play Store to download. And it's all your Wolves content in one place in the Timberwolves community. I've been checking it out a little bit more here through the playoffs. I was just kind of thinking, like, particularly, well, for the playoffs, it's great to have all the content from the writers, the podcasts, all in one place there. The team content's also on there. I always feel like when I'm looking at for as much as I know people love quotes and clips and stuff like that, I'm always surprised by like how little views the YouTube videos of the post-game press conferences have. Those are all in the Autograph app as well. And we'd love for you to try that out. I do use the referral code Dane Moore, to let them know that you came from us, and they're going to have a bunch of memorabilia and different drops all throughout the summer. So for the playoffs, for the off season, perfect place to get all of your content in one place. Again, that's the Autograph app. You can download it in the App Store or the Google Play Store. All right, Kyle, let's keep moving here. I went into the locker room tonight thinking about offense, trying to ask questions about offense, what they did have, how ways in which they can get more of it, because the way I'm sort of thinking about this is, right, like Jokic is kind of going to get his, right? And if Jokic is going to get his, they're going to have a pretty effective offensive night, right? So part of it, the Wolves need to play better defense. They need to force some more turnovers, get out in transition. But they need to play better half-court offense. I asked Kat about that after the game. I thought he kind of pointed to the defensive side of the floor to get the offense going. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Carl, what did you guys do offensively in this game that you can take that is helpful going forward, or what do you need to do as a team to get more offense?
Just play our game. I think that when we execute at a high level, we've shown in Phoenix, we've shown in Game 2, we've shown in Game 1. We just got to execute at a high level, and I think as well, we got to get back to that team we were defensively. I think that's what made our offense so much better, was that we were getting fast break points and we were utilizing our athleticism and the uber athletic guards and wings we have, and Jaden and Ant. We just got to get stops and use those stops to initiate our offense a little better, I think.
How do you get that defense to be there if Jokic is making shots at the clip that he's making?
You got to make him not make. Shoot that clip that he's shooting right now. We just got to do a better job as a team of defending and making it more difficult for them to make those shots, and you play the brand of basketball that we've been known for. Excuse me, that we're known for during the season and in the playoffs in the first 6 games.
So, Kyle, I think that's is interesting to me, because again, and maybe I'm just too in the moment of like what Jokic did, but that feels like a wall, right? Of like, if the Wolves are reliant on their defense to fuel their offense, I'm worried about that, because I'm worried about their, as we talked about for the first 10 minutes, their ability to slow or stop or force turnovers against Jokic when they're playing everything through him. He doesn't, not that he never makes mistakes, but he makes the least for a really high usage player in the league. So I'm not saying that's not part of the equation, but to me, it's more about what can you, as the Wolves, be doing offensively that is consistently generating better offense for them and for the Wolves themselves, because it's kind of like you got to score with them. And I thought it really stood out to me. First two possessions of the game were really of the first quarter were really like scripted, and it was they found Rudy on the short roll, dropped off to Jaden McDaniels for the dunk. You're like, sweet. Those are two things knew you needed. We needed Rudy on the roll, needed Jaden as a cutter. Next possession, it's for Cat in the corner, spaces to the corner, hits a corner three. You're like, that's something you knew you needed as well. And then the first possessions of the second half were like that too, where I'm trying to remember what the very first one was. The second one was that found Ant out in like semi-transition and he attacked the basket. It was these more like, or where there was a timeout or you're coming out of a challenge or something like that, when they could call an ATO and there was a scripted structure to the offense, I felt like it worked better. And I would be really focused on that, of being like stringent offensively about what it is you are trying to get to. Obviously, their best offense does come from the flow, but you can find flow within structure some too. I really think if they're able to win game 6, it's because the offense looks like just as much of a problem as Denver's offense looks like. And then, you hope that by doing that, you've slowed, I don't know, you've gotten some more momentum going your way and Jokic doesn't just steamroll you, right? But to me, so much of it starts with offense. And I hear what Carl's saying, because that's been their identity all season, but this is a different beast, man. Like, I don't think this is a team that you can rely on your defense to fuel your offense. At least that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily criticize the comments post game, but they seemed like the type of things you would say against like 28 other teams, right? Like if we got to get back to playing our brand of defense, and our defense will lead to our offense. But to your point, this is just not a team that you are going to turn the ball over, like force them to turn the ball over much. They might just do this. Like the crazy thing is you watch guys go off against your favorite team. You're like, okay, one game, or like even Aaron Gordon. I was like, oh, he won't do that again. Well, he kind of is, but with Jokic, he can just replicate 40 and 13 and no turnovers on Thursday at Target Center. So that's probably not going to work. So to your point, yeah, I think they have to be really purposeful with every possession they have on offense. But to kind of dumb it down, wasn't this the second or third best three-point shooting team in the regular season by percentage? Like, they got to make shots. and it's unfortunate now that we are, 9-10 games into the playoffs, but like just Naz Reid just hasn't really clicked more than a half. So you're not like tonight, Naz was 0 for 3 from 3. Nothing from Naz. The Jaden stuff, like for him to have a year now that he kind of regresses as a three-point shooter. I know that's more regular season stuff, but yes, to your point, they need to add more structure and more menus and more recipes and all that stuff, but also too, like you just got to kind of score when given the opportunity. And I think if you rewatch this game, there were a lot of shots that were kind of open for Jaden or for Nikhil or Naz that were the same type of offense that was really humming during March or, in that Phoenix series, and they just didn't make them. So I don't, because that what Carl said, man, goes back to what we said in segment 1. I just don't know how they're going to slow them down. Like, to your point, to sum it up, you might just have to outscore the Denver Nuggets. And to do that, it's not going to be because you turned them over 18 times and got 20 points in transition. Yeah. It's going to be because you were really methodical with every possession you had in the half court.
And what typically is the lever the Wolves pull for methodical offense? Mike Conley, right? And that wasn't that wasn't there, kind of out of nowhere this morning. Let's talk a little bit about what it looked like playing without Conley and what it might look like once he gets back, and how many of the answers to these questions we have just Conley's presence might have. It was Nickeil Alexander-Walker starts in his place. Kyle Anderson was used a lot in the rotation early. I mean, some of that was the bigs were getting in foul trouble, but it seemed like you were looking to replace some of the playmaking by getting Kyle Anderson out on the floor a little bit more. Monte Morris, I actually thought, he was pretty nice in his, he checks in early in the second quarter for the first time, looked confident and competent, just as a a very traditional point guard there. That was kind of the answers that they went to in this one were those three. How much did you think they missed Mike Conley?
Just a ton. Like, yes, Nikhil started in his place, had 14, hit 4 of 8 from 3, 5 assists, 2 blocks. But tonight kind of summarized for me in how I believe in basketball, how I consume basketball, that, Nikhil's like, only 25 years old, and we talk about maybe he's like the future starting point guard alongside Ant down the road if you resign him, all that stuff. No. Like, he just doesn't have that, and that's fine because Nikhil is getting asked to do so many other things and is just
he's a
awesome
two.
as
Yeah.
he's as a 2 off the bench he's just so good at those things, but he is not a floor general. And there are so many times tonight, back to what we just talked about not being meticulous and valuing every possession and having Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford were calling out on the call that they look lost, and it would get into late in the shot clock and they had no one to kind of like correct them on the fly and get them back into something. So I think just Mike's, I know it sounds so sappy, but like Mike's leadership and just his presence out there for a team that has always all season been questioning their maturity. They just needed another adult out there tonight. I'm with you. I thought the Monty Morris minutes were fine. I also can remember twice where he like turned down a 3 when the ball was in rotation, and it's just like, you can't do that. I was shocked that in a game like this, like Jordan McLaughlin didn't even get a little run, especially like I know we're grasping at straws here, but like in the Reggie Jackson minutes, I'm not worried about Jordan McLaughlin against him in terms of like offense, defense. So give him a shot, push the pace a little bit, but without Mike and with a banged up Carl, again, you just kind of, what are the other options if Nas is not going to hit his threes? I mean, Nikhil went 4 for 8 for 3. I think the other guys went 4 for 19. Like, you're not getting anything from anyone on the team, including Ant. So Nikhil served his best, but it's just like point Ant, right, or point Levine back in the day, or point Wayne.
Right. Well,
you still need a point guard next
Yeah.
to these all timers, and Nikhil's so good in his role coming off the bench or playing alongside in certain minutes. But when you're trying to run an offense, you need a quarterback, and the Timberwolves didn't have their quarterback tonight.
Yeah, and Ant needed to be more of that, right? I was random, but I was watching the Mavs Thunder game from last night, this afternoon before this game, and I was thinking about I mean there's similarities at least in the way in which Luka's covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is in the coverage in which Denver is putting in, but I'd like Luka can get downhill a bit as the point guard and find Rudy on lob, or find Gafford and Lively on lob dunks. And I just would like to see more of that, of like Ant getting downhill, but not necessarily with going 100 miles an hour, just a little bit more point guarding from him. I think they needed that tonight just to get a little bit more of that, particularly because Rudy was there and Rudy was open. You just, with Mike Conley out, I was saying it, I was thinking it before the game, like you just, there was it was a must that Ant had a game like he had in game 4, which is obviously possible. He did it, he did it in game 4, but you take away the control and leadership of just offensive possessions that Mike Conley has. You remove that and you put it on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's more of a 2 than he is a 1, or Anthony Edwards, who's also probably more of a 2 than he is a 1, plus their whole entire defense is scripted to take him away. I just, and Finch did say they're hopeful that Mike Conley can come back and play in game 6, but I almost wonder if you start Monte for point guard, or more of him, just to have a little bit more of that control out there and a little bit more of that structure. Maybe it's not starting him, but I don't know where you get into your offense if it isn't through a point guard, and didn't really seem like they had point guard options tonight.
But that's why, and maybe you were just, I don't know, burping, but like that's why it seemed like you scoffed at my Jordan McLaughlin idea. He's like a point guard. He has limitations, but at least he can like get you into stuff. So that's why
But
I
wouldn't
was
you
kind
say
of bummed.
Monte's more like a get
I
you
don't-
into stuff guy?
I don't. Monte Moore seems. I don't know. I might just have blinders on. I don't really get wowed by him. He is just like a handcuffed running back that I have on my bench. Like, okay, he comes in, and I put him in, and he gets a couple points. But I didn't really see him.
I'll
doing
say
too much.
I agree. I agree with that. I guess I'm still like maybe the handcuff.
Sure,
Like-
sure. I think if Mike can play, he'll start. But
For
to
sure.
the
Well,
bigger
yeah.
point, and you said it, like they needed a really special game from Ant. I'll be curious when you rewatch it. I thought there was some, and maybe it was just certain possessions that stood out, but I thought Ant had some just awesome defensive possessions against Murray where he just literally like backed Murray up to the half line. But now if you start asking him to like, hey, can you play better defense than you did at Target Center in games 3 and 4? And can you have 40? And can you initiate the offense and play quarterback? Like you're just, the best part that Mike does sometimes is if Anthony Edwards was like one of the, and everyone has one now, but like if Anthony Edwards was a player podcast, Mike Conley is just that like random dude you never heard of that's the co-host that gets you into ad breaks. And that's what Ant needs. Like he needs that guy to just get him to segment 1 and segment 2 so he can be funny and be awesome and be the content creator. And I don't know if they have anyone else on the team. Yeah, sure. Maybe Monte in spots. It's not Kyle in this series again, not to just completely dump on him all the time, but without Mike tonight, as soon as you said that he was out or they tweeted that he was out, you're like, oh man, this is going to be a real uphill battle. And it ended up being an uphill battle. But if Mike can go on Thursday, they need him because Ant is special in his own way, but having that host or that co-host to kind of get him through some stuff and put him in the right spots when the clock's winding down or the crowd is loud or the other team's on a run. Without Mike, they just don't have that on the roster. And that just tells you how good Mike Conley is, right? Like he's played 96% of the games this season, but you gotta have a backup for that. And that's what Monty Morris was brought in. But I didn't get that from him in the 12 minutes he played tonight. I just got a guy that hit a couple shots and otherwise I didn't really notice him.
All right, Kyle. Let's talk about some things that went well because I actually do think that there were like I think and there are things to build on actually for a game 4. We know it didn't go well in game 5, and we don't know what the answers are for that in Jokic and slowing that down. But I think they did step up in some areas that they hadn't previously in this series. The 4 I have down, and we can just kind of rip through these quickly, but I'll let you choose which one. The non-Jokic minutes worked. The Wolves won those. They did slow Jamal Murray. Rudy was there on the roll. It was he had a big offensive game after being very quiet in the first 3 games that he played in this series, and then they got Cat going a bit in the second half. Which one of those do you want to hit on first?
I mean, the Rudy stuff, because again, just kind of looking at his box score, he had 18 and 11. He didn't miss a shot. And of all the guys, like he was only a -2. I know we're not talking about defense now, but there's more there for Rudy. But
the -2 is a good part of it. Of like he got cooked defensively. Like he got cooked.
Nikola Jokic had
he
a Michael Jordan MVP type performance, one of the best games in playoff history that a player has ever had that stat line and no turnovers. And that's actually like the craziest number of the night for me was that Rudy was -2. Like he did hold his own.
It was because of offense.
Yeah. So do you think though that Denver, what I was trying to say is, do you think Denver cares? Like, do you think if they're like, hey, we'll actually just let him go 10 for 10? Because that's what I struggle with is like, he doesn't miss a shot. You can't say that a guy that went for 18-11 was bad when he doesn't miss a shot. But I wonder if Denver's like, we'll even give him 4 more. Like, I wonder if they care. Like, if that's the thing that's going to open up the offense.
We talked about this after game 4 and we asked Rudy about it in the locker room after the game and about the importance of occasionally finding Rudy, at least occasionally finding him on the roll there. It forces, if you do start finding him a little bit, it forces the defense to bring 1 or 2 guys in to defend that role. And that's why I don't think it needs to be 14, 15 shots from Rudy. It just needs to be a handful of those within the context of a more structured offense. And I think like the good part about what he did in this one is it does feel kind of like it can be duplicated. What was it? He was 7 for 7 or was he 8 for 8? Like,
7
what
for
was
7,
the?
yeah.
Yeah, 7 for 7. So it doesn't need to be a ton. He's also going to get fouled, and there's some. I do think it is not the answer for the Wolves offense. I think it's something that starts unraveling like the scroll of what the answer is for the Wolves is Rudy there. I asked him about it after the game again.
Rudy, you mentioned after game 4 that there's maybe some more opportunity to go to you inside on the roll. That happened in this game. How much can going, you guys playing on the inside, be part of the answer for you offensively going forward as a team?
I truly believe that part of who we are is our size, and it's the fact that we have bigs that can punish those mismatches. We did a lot of cat in the post, and I think it was really good offense for us all the times we did it. And yeah, finding our bigs on the rolls, finding our bigs in the mismatches. I think a lot of time it ends up being a foul, or he ends up being a wide open 3 or a basket. So the hardest thing is to do it. They're doing a great job with their length. Try to take away those passes, try to make it hard on our guards to find us. So I think we're getting better and better. And as long as we keep, like Nikhil said, keep trying to make the right play. I think we'll be fine. We've done it. We just haven't done it consistently yet, but we've done it. For the most part of the game, and good things happen when we do that.
So, Kyle, people are going to make the case that Rudy's minutes should be limited in game 6 or whatever, because game 2 was the best game of the series for the Wolves, and Gobert didn't play in that. If you are going to play Gobert, as I'm almost sure they will continue to, there's just certain things you have to do to involve Rudy Gobert. And so many times that has to come on the offensive side of the floor. It's back to the whole, it's like a cousin of the whole idea of when they go small ball against Gobert out there, well, you need to punish on the other side, on the offensive side of the floor, if they're going to go small against that. Like it's kind of the same idea to me of that, where if you're going to play Rudy, there's just part of a way that you need to play. And I think this is the part. And again, it doesn't need to be a 20-point performance from Rudy, but it needs to be a threatening performance so as to loosen things up, because you need Ant to get going. You need Ant to have 35 plus whatever efficiently in game 6. And so as to get that, someone else needs to get going to loosen it up. Cat is maybe part of that answer, but Cat has not had, maybe game 4 against Phoenix was one game where he strung it together for 48 straight minutes. I don't know how if that's your only thing you're pointing to of like, this is the other thing we have to get going so as to get Ant going, I'm not sure that's dependable enough to be the thing. It needs to be some Cat. It needs to be Rudy on the interior. Obviously, the other guy's hitting shots, but you need to crack open the egg in some way. And I guess I keep highlighting the Rudy part of it because I think that gets underplayed in the value of it, whether it be shooting 7 for 7, but even more so in just of how it kind of distorts the defense once you start going to Gobert. I don't know if we need to go any further on that.
No. Overall, do you think Rudy played good tonight? Because I do, but I might not be smart. Like,
it's just, I don't know, man. It's no,
like,
I don't,
didn't play, like,
because he just needed to do more against Jokic. And I don't know, is that even fair thing to put on him defensively? Like,
I gotta go watch it, because there's a couple where it's like I literally don't know how. And there was possessions where he was a half step later. There was some weird communication a couple times with him and Kyle, and I think him and Nas once. But that's fair. It's just, I guess what I was trying to say is maybe more on the offensive side. To your point, like what he did offensively is totally, he can have 18 on 7 to 7 again on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Like that's doable, because as you're saying, like that's there. So if you're trying to like build out, I think of like when you're doing an auction draft, in fact, like if you're trying to build out like, okay, we're going to allocate, Rudy's going to get 18 on Thursday. on 7 of 7, or maybe he's going to get 20 on 8 of 8 or 8 of 9. Okay, now we got that. Like, how are we trying to get back to? You and I think the only way they win on Thursday is if they can. This sounds pretty dumb, but if they can outscore the Nuggets. But literally, like, they have to have a really good offensive game, because I don't think the defense thing is going to work. So, yeah, maybe there's more opportunities to find Rudy, and then maybe that just opens up again, to your point. A defender leaks in or cuts down on Rudy, and then it gets guys more open looks. But I just can't stop staring at the box score and being like, hey, these guys just need to make more shots. Because there were some good opportunities tonight for Rudy also to have more assists and for Ant to have 13 or 14 assists. And they just, they just kind of looked at it and said, we're going to make Ant get off the ball, and we're going to make Rudy, if Rudy has 30 and 15, that's fine. And then just got to get more from Karl too. So they're an undermanned team now. Like, this is a team that had a lot of depth. That was, like, I guess my biggest takeaway tonight was the deepest team in the league. All of a sudden you lose your point guard. Kyle's not, in my mind, worthy of playing. Nas isn't helping. And now Monty Morris has to play 12 minutes. Like, all of a sudden you have a 5-man lineup, and one of them isn't your starting point guard. So they need Mike back. They need to get the floor spread a little more, but they also just got to make shots. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but it's kind of.
But this was a good thing. Like, they did the Gobert part of it. Like, that did happen tonight. So that is a good thing that happened
has
tonight.
6 and
that
4
could
tonight,
lead.
they get beat it by 30.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So you were right on it after game 4.
Another way the Wolves lose by 30 tonight is if Jamal Murray maybe has 30. That stood out to me as the thing they did well, is they slowed Murray. He was just a little bit less involved because they did have Jokic initiate. There's just a little less ball in his hands to it, but I think they made it difficult on him throughout the game. Even when he did have the ball, I wrote down, he was 4 of 10 with just 10 points, and they were all twos. Entering the fourth quarter, he got going a little bit in the fourth quarter, finishes with 16. But I think that was something you take with you to build upon for game 6 is, okay, Murray wasn't doing the thing where he was hitting insanely difficult pull-up twos at a high clip. And to me, it wasn't just like he was missing. I think that's maybe one I need to go back and watch a little bit more to point to specifics of it. But I thought they did a good job on Jamal Murray, and that matters in this series. He's number 2 in the pecking order for them, and they did slow that down, even if they didn't slow down Jokic at all.
I'd be curious for you to rewatch it, and I'm basing this solely off of just one watch of it, and then what he said post game. But a lot of his comments post game were just like, Jokic was cooking so much that a lot of us literally didn't be aggressive. Like, we in a spot where it's like, should we try to get our own here or just give it back to Jokic? They give it back to Jokic. So you're right. I mean, he had 16 points. I mean, he did kind of shoot 50%. He didn't take a 3. So how much of that was because of what the Wolves were doing to him? I think it's a little bit of both, but I also just almost don't want to get my hopes up that they found this lever to pull if he just was like, hey, I can just coast tonight. Because they got a big night out of KCP. He was 4 for 5 from 3. The guy that's been pretty bad all series in totality has been Michael Porter Jr. Hasn't really done much of anything, but we also are almost an hour into this. And yes, the Jamal Murray stuff, like, let's keep an eye on that, rewatch it, see what happens. Maybe there were some things they did. But man, on the call tonight, they called him Aaron, Scottie Pippen, Gordon. Like, if that's the Aaron Gordon they're going to get again in game 6, who has now done it in 3 and 4 and now 5, I don't know. I mean, he is the best second banana right now. He's the best second banana in the league. Like, what he does, his intensity, his defense. He had 10 rebounds tonight, 5 assists. He is playing out of his mind. He didn't even hit a 3 tonight, but he shot 50% too. So just his activity level and his connection with Jokic is on another level. So while Jamal had a below average game, another just really, really impressive night from Aaron Gordon.
I do think, that's good to bring up. I mean, I think Murray is the number 2 there, though.
Oh, for sure.
You're right. With
in this chunk of games, as they've regained home court and kind of regained the series, I think Aaron Gordon's been their second best player. But again, to your point, now you're trying to figure out who do we slow down. They didn't really get a ton of production. Christian Braun had 10 points tonight, but it's really just those 5 starters versus the Wolves' 5 starters right now, and guys like KCP and Aaron Gordon just giving you so much more than Jaden's giving you, or than whoever's playing point guard is giving you, and that just it's a numbers game. If they have the best player and they have maybe the second and fourth best player, you're running out of options.
Another thing I thought they did well, I loved what they did in the non-Jokic minutes, because it was the opposite of what they did in the other game. Those minutes were terrible. I didn't think the process was strong for how they approached those minutes in Game 4, and I think that's a big reason why they lost Game 4 was the beginning of that second quarter and how the Nuggets torched the Wolves, because it was the Reed, Anderson, McDaniels, Conley, I think was the group they put out there in the second quarter of Game 4 that had never played together before. They made really good adjustments to that. Gobert hadn't been playing in the non-Jokic minutes previously in this series because they wanted Gobert's minutes matched up with Jokic's minutes. But they said, nope, we need Rudy out there in the non-Jokic minutes. He got dunks on the first 2 possessions. He was out there. That's when Malone got the technical. Rudy kind of had the little clear out sort of thing. But so I liked Rudy being on the floor there. And then Ant, did you notice he stayed in? He played the whole first quarter and he played the first 3 minutes of the second quarter, which is, you're getting a low gas tank Ant at that point, probably as he gets to minute 13, 14, 15 in a row. But I like that. I like having weaponized offense out there when Jokic is off the floor. Didn't end up being a huge advantage for the Wolves, but they win the non-Jokic minutes by 6 tonight, which just needs to be the standard. That needs to be the standard. You try and play Jokic as close to even as you can during his 40 minutes of the game. And that's normally what the Wolves did. They didn't do that tonight, but normally they play the Jokic minutes pretty even. Can't lose the non-Jokic minutes. Better process there. Do that again. Win those again in Game 6. Maybe get Jokic in foul trouble. Like that's part of just the plan needs to be like, okay, well, you got to get Jokic out of his rhythm, off the floor. Like it's kind of at the point where you're almost trying to barrel down at him or something to try to just draw foul trouble. Like create more non-Jokic minutes by getting him in foul trouble and capitalizing on them. If those are the units they're going to put out there in the non-Jokic minutes, the Wolves can capitalize on those. That's a must there. And then the last thing I have down for things that went well was Cat got going a little bit in the second half. In the second quarter, it was a little voltagey, but beginning of the third quarter was great from him. He's done that pretty consistently throughout the playoffs right away at the start of the third quarter, coming out and being an offensive weapon right there. So for you, non-Jokic minutes or Cat getting going a little bit in this game, what stood out to you there just in positive elements from the Wolves?
I mean, the non-Jokic minutes, simply because if you lose those minutes, you just lose the game. Like, I don't know what the career numbers are on that, but I would just imagine that if the Nuggets can win the non-Jokic minutes, that they're winning those games at a 85% clip. So the way they tweaked that, I mean, that was literally like an adjustment between 4 and 5 that Finch and his staff made, and that was really good. You know, I almost would have, this is hindsight, but I would have loved to have seen maybe Ant sub out in the first and then come back in the second against those non-Jokic minutes. Because again, like you said, he's just running on empty or on a low tank.
Looked like they tried to do that in the third quarter.
Okay.
So for like this, like Ant came out with like 2 or 3 minutes left in the first quarter. I mean, it's kind of when Denver is on a run. I don't know if that was specifically for that, but I get what you're saying. Like have Ant sit out the last 3 minutes of the first and third quarter. So he's back in at the start of the second and fourth when Jokic is in. Yeah. I'm just glad he's on the floor. Like they need offense then.
I thought actually it's pretty safe to say now through 5 games that if you had to pick a coaching staff that's coached better, that Denver has coached better, but you know, the Wolves head coach doesn't have a leg. So I don't know how much of that is impacting all of this, but Denver's just, I think, made crisper and smarter and more timely adjustments. But that was one that the Wolves made that worked. And I think winning those non-Jokic minutes is why this was one of those games where even the Nuggets, like beat reporters were saying, oh my God, the Nuggets did this, this, and this, and they're up 4. or they're up
Yeah.
6. Like that was a way. Winning those non-Jokic minutes is a really good way to keep some grip on the rope. Obviously, it kind of got blown out there in the third, but those are really important times, and I enjoyed that they tweaked it tonight. I'd like to find even better ways to have more revitalized Ant out there during those minutes, or like you said, play Rudy more. But and then the Carl thing, not a blow your socks off box score, but you were there tonight. You saw him post game. It was really scary in the moment because you could see it was the same knee that he had surgery or that he had injured earlier this season, and he was down in a lot of pain and then limping around. But he toughed it out, and I mean, credit to him for having to guard Jokic, and he gave him a jolt. But in Game 6, all I could think about before we recorded was like they got to basically do the Phoenix thing last year against Denver. I know we talked about let's get Rudy those 18 points to kind of set the foundation. Carl and Ant have to go for 70 on Thursday. Like you just have to get more from those two guys combined if you're gonna.
But how do you do that?
What we think.
That's what I keep going back to. It's like they tried to do that in the first half, and it's just loaded up, and that was all the turnovers. I mean, I guess maybe doing it without it being all drives, because if it's Cat and Ant just trying to drive into crowds, if that's the path to 70, like that, it's not happening. Like
no, and God forbid. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen 3 offensive fouls called in a row. That was kind of mind numbing too. So yeah, just driving to the basket's not going to work.
Covered the Wolves for a while, but
I don't know the answer to. I don't know how to get to the destination. But one thing that I've taken away from these 5 games, and maybe it's impossible. Maybe Denver has such a good wall and a scheme. I think the rim is wide open. It's just how do you get there? And the way the Wolves do it in just straight line drives to the basket, it's not going to work. It's what's leading to all these charges. But I still believe that there's no rim protection. And again, I'll defer to you on how to get to that point. But there's got to be more ways to. They also really don't swing the ball around the perimeter nearly as much as they did in some of those high points of the Phoenix series. But I don't have the answer to that. Otherwise, I'd be on the staff. But there are opportunities there in my mind on this offensive side of the ball to get more guys to the rim, get more guys to the basket. And then that also should hopefully, right, like lead to more open threes for guys. But that would be my biggest takeaway. Do you agree or do you not see that?
Yeah, no, I do. I was just like thinking about it. It's like, I mean,
I don't have the answer.
Ant is still learning like how to approach this coverage. Like, and he's gotten a lot better at it when they're putting 2 on the ball on him there. But I just remember like looking at that a lot 2 years ago when the Wolves ran that coverage all the time, and guys like Trae Young or Luka would really like, all right, the big's up, I'm going to stretch it all the way like east-west across the floor. So like if you're Ant and you're like, okay, Jokic is up, make him kind of come with me toward the sideline there. And then when you throw the snap back pass to Rudy in the middle of the floor or to Jaden or Nikhil on the opposite side, there's just that greater distance that Denver has a longer way to recover back to. And then, you have that shifted defense, and now you're going to attack back downhill. I'd like to see Ant get wider with that. I've also wondered,
and the pass needs to be crisper too. If you watch it back, there's a lot of times where it's almost he's so dejected because he does want to go get that bucket or he wants to carry this team, where it's a lot of like that snapback pass is like a really low trajectory bounce pass. Like he really needs to whip it. Like
he's like literally like I'm just getting off of it. Like it doesn't like I'm not really
he's pissed off. He's like okay, whatever.
Sure.
So if he
it's frustrating.
Pull him out, but then also to like get that thing thrown tonight. The one that I'm thinking of like Nas, get it back to Nas, and then Nas, when you get the ball, you're already like moving towards a drive. So then just like get everyone in chaos mode. But I like that. That would be an adjustment too. Like try to pull them out more. I don't think he did that at all tonight. But again, I think it's because he still wants to get to the rim. He's in attack mode. He's like, why would I go backwards? But it's like, dude, actually, if you go backwards, it might actually open up everyone else to go. But that's
and he's figured that out at different times in different games of like, slow down to go faster.
The Suns did it from a JV version, and the Nuggets are doing it from a varsity version.
I also just wonder too, like when Rudy's not out there, can you still just run pick and roll like you do with Rudy, but Towns is the screener? And then if they're going to still put Jokic up in coverage there and it's Towns kind of on the short roll, like that should then now Cat's in the position where he can take those floaters that Jokic had like 15 of in game 4. Like Rudy can't really fluidly take it, grab it, one dribble into a floater, there. But they have other bigs on the roster who can. Nas could do that. Cat could do that. The problem is you can't really use Cat as the screener if Rudy's on the floor because Rudy's in the dunker, right? So that just would get very congested there. But
I'd try it though.
I would just like to see more of Cat as the screener, just for short little slip rolls, stuff like that with him in the middle of the floor. It's hard to double him there. Or also, how about some pick and pop with Cat? Like, I feel like that's been gone for like 4 months and I don't get it, like what, is that a product of you just don't want to use Cat as a screener when Rudy's out there because of congestion? Sometimes teams don't like to use their foul-prone bigs in ball screen action because that's kind of like signing up for one offensive foul or two a game from that. But I don't know. I think there are some offensive things that the Wolves can do, and that's kind of like in summation of all of this. If they can find more offensive things to do and can get back to a little bit more teeth defensively, so Jokic can't have the best game of his career, just an awesome one, I think you can score with him. And then, get out in your runs. Like the Wolves do have a burst ability to them. We've seen that against Denver, even in some of the games that they've lost. I don't know. I think there's more answers offensively here than it maybe seems just in the moment after, kind of getting it taken to you again. But I'm looking for that. That's a requirement to win Game 6 and extend this.
I'm with you on the pick and pop thing with Carl. He's averaging 19.4 points in these 5 games against Denver. He had 19.4 points in those 4 games against Phoenix. That's fine because Phoenix is just, again, a JV version of what this Denver Nuggets varsity version is. But Carl hasn't taken more than 5 threes in any of these first 5 games. It's just like, I know you've said 10. It's got to be 8. Like, it's just got to be 8. His minutes are, he only played 28 minutes a game against Phoenix in those 4 games. He's playing 36 against Denver. Like, there's just got to be more threes for a team now that all of a sudden half the team has regressed to being really bad. Nas and Jaden and Nikhil had a good game tonight, but was really bad at home at Target Center. You got to just have the best shooting big men of all time taking more threes. And those have got to be easy actions to set them up, but they have to find more offense. And it sucks that it's happening right now, but like they're starting to revert back to what was kind of the bugaboo, right, of the second half of the season or in January. Sticks out as just an offense that just isn't enough to compete against championship level teams.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, I hope they win Game 6 so we can keep staying up till 3 a.m. doing post game pods.
Tonight was they fought tonight. I mean, it was a pretty negative thing we just talked about. I told you we should just post a Jokic highlight video and just skip the pod, but I thought they fought tonight in a game that had a lot of value. It was pivotal, Game 5, but they did some things that were really well. It's just they don't have an answer for Jokic. So if they can swallow their pride and just be like, hey, he's going to get his, but we're going to try to shut off everyone else, which is, I think,
and
something
make it harder on
team
him
can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is still, I'm not going to throw out everything I watched for the first 88 games of the year. Like, this is still the best defense in the league against the smartest basketball player in the league. So that makes for really good entertainment and really good product. But can they pivot now, get back home? And it sounds like this is a funeral, or like we're putting on our suits for the funeral. But in my mind, the way basketball always works, if you win Game 6, you haven't won at home in this series. I totally get that. But if you win Game 6, to me, it spins right back to all the pressure on Denver. Because, yes, they get to go home, but Game 7s, we've watched enough of those in any year of basketball playoffs that anything can happen. So the chips are down. They'll fly home tomorrow, and we'll see what Finch and Micah have cooked up. But they played a good basketball game tonight, in my opinion. They just got absolutely steamrolled by the 3-time MVP and probably now one of the 10 best players of all time.
Yeah, man, he was incredible. That's the primary takeaway from this, and that the Wolves need to be better against that in Game 6. We'll see. That's coming up here in, I guess, less than 48 hours, and we'll keep rolling. This was fun, Kyle. You guys can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige, and we'll be back to talk about the game on that will be Thursday night after Game 6, and we'll see if the Wolves can extend it to Game 7. So until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.